connections, making sure it's working. I'm about to go live with this gentleman here, Michael Feldman. And Michael is the founder of Feldman's Deli, and he has successfully run Feldman's now for what, 10, 15?
13 years.
13 years, wow. And he's a local musician, and we had a conversation in the park talking about how local music could really be stronger here in Utah, and he has a lot of ideas about that. So those of you joining us on Instagram, I wish I could do both feeds at the same time, but I don't want to play with my phone the whole time. So join us on the YouTube feed. We're going to stream this live on YouTube. Just wanted to do that shout out that we're doing this episode right now. It's 2:14. We'll be going for about 40 minutes, and so join us over there and hope to see you. It's Utah Stories YouTube channel, and we will be over there. So I'm going to end the Instagram feed. And there we go. All right. Yeah, thanks for joining me, everybody. My name is Richard Marcosian. I'm the host of Utah Stories. If you are a new watcher, listener, this is Utah Stories Magazine. This is our monthly magazine that we produce every single month. This is our brand new Farmers Market issue, just hot off the press. If you'd like to learn more about Utah Stories, go visit utahstories.com. And so there's something we learned when we started doing festivals, and it's kind of that local music is really hit and miss, but there is a really strong local music community here in Utah. And I'm pleased to have on the show today Michael Feldman, who's a strong local music advocate. He's a local musician. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, so how long was it when you first decided you were going to go out and start performing on stage?
Well, I've been playing music for a long time, since I was a kid, but I had given music up to build a career and have a family. When we opened Feldman's Deli, we started hiring musicians, and that reminded me that I used to do this. So I decided I was going to use that as an inspiration to get myself performance ready and go out and perform. So I started performing around town as the Deli Man, as a solo act, and I hired myself to play at the deli. But he also went out and found other venues to play, and that got me back into performing.
That's cool. So you were not brand new to performing on stage. You had done that as a kid, or how long had you done that?
I had a
for?
garage band, you know. We used to, the band was called the Rainy Daze, D-A-Z-E. We were, 17, 18-year-old kids performing at, high school dances and things like that. When I got to college, my roommate was a lead guitar player. So I was playing keyboards in those bands back in those days. And he would practice all the time. I was trying to study. I was a bio major. My intention was to go to med school, so I was taking my studies pretty seriously, and he was practicing lead guitar all the time. I couldn't stop him from doing it, so I said, well, if I can't stop you, I'll join you. Teach me how to play guitar. And that's what he did.
So instead of staying up late nights just listening, you're like, I'm just going to... That's a pretty good attitude.
Yeah, we ended up on the front porch jamming all the time.
That's cool. And so you just learned a repertoire of songs were they just cover songs, or?
So this was, I was in college 70 to 74, so Neil Young, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Poco, Buffalo Springfield, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, some good music.
All those. Jethro Tull were some of my favorites.
That's awesome.
And inspirations for the kind of music that I learned back then. But then I also started getting into the blues. And, Eric Clapton, when he broke away from Cream, did a deep dive into blues. And so I was curious why he was so enamored with the blues. So I started looking into it, and I discovered some of the old artists that created the blues in America. Um, Reverend Gary Davis, Robert Johnson, Willie Dixon, Willie Johnson,
Muddy Waters.
Muddy Waters, all those guys, and I became hooked. Just like Clapton did, I was hooked on the blues.
Mm-hmm. That scene at that time was particularly really interesting because it was like the UK discovered the blues.
Yeah, the white UK rock artist discovered the blues. Matter of fact, the blues guys were struggling here in this country, but they were invited to go over to the UK and tour with Clapton and the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin. They all loved having, B.B. King and those guys come over there, and they were very popular over there.
That's interesting that how we had this cross-pollination going on, where you had this, of course, earlier in the 60s and even till later in the 60s, Beatlemania and the Rolling Stones and all these UK bands were so popular, even in the United States. But then the blues is just sort of incubating and growing. And then it seemed like it really took hold, especially in the UK and Europe.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, Cream, Eric Clapton, the Yardbirds, John Mayall, they all were super into the blues.
Yeah. And so when you initially started performing, were you more inclined to do cover songs, or did you want to develop your own material right away, or what was your goal?
I wrote some back in the 70s, and I still play those songs because they were pretty good songs, still are. But I just started learning a lot of blues covers, and when you're performing, it's always good to have songs that people recognize. It's easier to get gigs if you're playing music that's recognizable, that'll draw an audience in. So I learned my share of covers. I probably balanced it out with about 30% originals and the rest covers.
Nice. And when you first started and you're kind of initiating your idea and you're going out and you're performing, how do you use the audience to develop your music? I know that's kind of a tough question, but I've always encouraged my cousins, friends, like, go out on the street, perform, get that audience feedback right away, because I think the only time I've really seen musicians fail is when they're not in front of audiences.
Well, certainly the audience helps you decide what music they like. So in addition to gigs, I always support open mics. Open mics occur quite often in Salt Lake. There's 4 of them that I go to regularly. Tailgate Tavern on Sundays, Level Crossing on West Temple on Wednesdays. There's an originals open mic on Tuesdays at Pat's Barbecue. There's another open mic in South Jordan at High Point Coffee. Those are the regularly occurring open mics. And the reason I do those, number one, I play material that's different than what I typically gig with. Gives me an opportunity to introduce brand new material to an audience in order to see how they react. It also allows me to practice songs that I don't play very often when I'm gigging, because I have typical set lists when I'm gigging. Mm-hmm. It's nice to play something different. You're always excited to be in front of an audience, a little nervous to play something you haven't played in a while. Mm-hmm. So it kind of keeps you honest.
Yeah, I just think that's a critical part of it, that audience feedback, and that's kind of what I thought would make this an interesting conversation, because it seems like there's a ton of talent in Utah. We have incredible musicians, and a lot of people are getting their talent incubated in, like, my brother's a good saxophone player. He went through jazz band, went through jazz school at the U, but then you go out and you want to convene with other like-minded musicians, you want to have a sort of a stepping ladder to launch your career. And is that kind of the part that you think is struggling in Utah?
Even though we have a lot of wonderful talent here in Utah, Salt Lake City particularly, the critical mass for the music scene is small and fragile. We don't have a central place where we all meet. There's no publication that lets everybody know what's going on. There's no central calendar. There's no central classified place for you to find bandmates, for you to find instruments that might be for sale. I mean, you go to different places. You can go to, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and places like that, but there's no one central area where musicians can come together in order to support each other, to meet each other, to arrange for services like recording services, duplication services, training, lessons. You get the idea.
Yeah.
It would be great, especially in today's day and age with AI, if we couldn't have a website that provides all the information and helps people propagate the information that about what they're doing and where to find them and where they're playing, and push that technology out to those who are looking for it and to other websites that help promote the music scene, like the calendars at City Weekly and KRCL.
What's missing from those calendars? Are they just not integrated enough? Is it
No,
just
they're there,
missing?
but it's just cumbersome. You've got to go in and put all your events in, one event at a time, one website at a time, and it's a pull technology. Unless people go to it, they're not going to see it. I think in today's day and age, I think we need to have a push technology that automatically provides the information to people that want it. All they have to do is sign up for it, and they'll automatically get updates.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that is surprising that you can't. Like we sometimes get a night where we can go on a date.
Yeah.
my Golda and I, and it's like, where's the live music?
Right.
Where's the local live music? Because we've heard them all at our festivals. They're
Right.
incredible musicians, and there was this band from Snow College that I was just like, those guys got to be around somewhere.
Right.
They were a 70s cover band and just amazing. But we could, like you said, we couldn't just quickly identify these hot spots, these places to go.
Venues have their own websites. They're not always good about listing what's there. I mean, a good example is Gracie's. They have music all the time, but they only post music once a month on their Facebook page. They list what's out there for the month, and if you happen to miss that post, you might forget, that you can go in there and scroll down and look for it and find it, but it takes some effort.
Mm-hmm.
The Garage, R.I.P. They just finished, but
Let's talk about that.
so they had an events page, but it was not always complete. Hog Wallow is another good venue, has an events page, but you got to go and look for it. There's no push technology to let you know what's going on. The different venues that are out there do have mechanisms to find out, but if you want to find out what's going on tonight, it's going to take you a half hour of going into the various Facebook pages and different venue websites in order to figure out some of what's going on. You won't find it all. You'll find just
That's
some
ridiculous. I kind of thought City Weekly, that was their gig.
of it. They used to.
Yeah.
Before COVID, they had a calendar page where all you had to do was submit to them all your gigs, and they would put it on the particular week that you were playing. You'd get a mention, but they don't do that anymore. You can go to their website and go to their events page and find stuff, but again, it's going to take you a few minutes to do that.
That's why we didn't get into it. We thought, City Weekly's doing that, so we're not
Right.
going to do it.
Right.
But Do you think besides that, if you're a musician and say you want to be a songwriter, guitar player, you can develop your talent and skill in Utah, or do you think there's a very distinct ceiling where you really should go move out to a different market if you want
I guess
to develop it?
I guess it depends on what your objective is. If you want to develop your skills, you can do that in Utah. There's plenty of good musicians. There's plenty of opportunities to collaborate. You know, once you get into a group of good musicians, a good example, Trash Moon Collective and the Hot House West group of people, if you can be in that circle, they do all kinds of workshops and jams and events where you can hone your skills. It's mostly swing and bluegrass and that kind of thing. But if you're into that kind of music, that's a good example of where you can help develop your talent. In blues, there's a couple of blues jams that used to occur almost every Monday night. The Dead Goat used to do a Monday night blues thing. And so there's a tradition of Monday blues. It still goes on down to the Green Pig. So you have a good blues musicians who jam, and that way people can participate and play with others in an ad hoc kind of a basis. Mm-hmm. There's a jam at Monday night at the Hog Wallow where it's more of an all genre jam. So if you want to just go in and jam with musicians who are playing anything from blues to rock to reggae to folk, you can meet up with other musicians. On Tuesday and Wednesday night, there's jams at both of the bar named Sue's. Each one has one on a different night. And again, it's an all-genre jam, and you can go and play with other musicians. That helps you hone your skills.
Is it all people with their guitars, or is it also drummers or bass players?
Well, they typically provide a back line, so they have a drum and some amplifiers, bass amplifier for sure. Most of them also have guitar amps, so all you have to do is bring your instrument. Mm-hmm. And your instrument could be guitar or something else, keyboards. Sax players are usually there. We've had trumpet players show up.
That's cool.
A lot of guitar players, a lot of singers who don't play any instrument, but they just want to sing.
Nice.
So, but that's just one kind of way to hone your skills. There's groups on Facebook, singer-songwriters. There's probably 3 different Facebook pages for songwriters in Salt Lake City and or Utah where you can meet other like-minded people, and they self-organize themselves to do things. The Intermountain Acoustic Music Association has a group of about 500 people. It used to be a bluegrass-oriented organization. Now it's kind of all genres of music. And once you're part of that organization, gives you an opportunity to meet lots of other like-minded musicians. The Blues Society, Utah Blues Society, has workshops during the Blues Festival to help local musicians. So there are a number of different ways that you can hone your skills. But if you want to give up your day job and just be a musician full time and be able to pay your mortgage and your car payment and send your kids to college, that's hard here in Utah. That's really hard. A lot of really talented musicians ultimately make the decision that they have to leave Utah to take their career to the next level. Good example, Tony Holiday. He lives now in New York, but he spent at least a year or so in Memphis to try and hone his career as a blues musician. Pixie and the Partygrass Boys, a great party bluegrass band, amazing musicians, but they needed to find a manager in Denver in order to take their career to the next level, where now they're touring all the time. Matter of fact, I just spoke to Katia at the the last dance at the garage, and she said the band's going to do a small tour of Europe this year.
Wow.
Neon Trees and others. They found their professional resources to help them take their career to the next level outside of Utah, because Utah doesn't seem to have that kind of a resource.
Yeah, and from what I understood about the more recent history, when Neon Trees and Imagine Dragons came out of Provo, of all places, that scene there seemed to take a lot of the limelight from Salt Lake City, and people would be like, "Do you know what's going on? Was it the Velvet Room, something like that?" Velour, yeah.
Velour.
And they were just incredibly talented musicians performing there, and but then when we did our festivals, we were just blown away by how many great, excellent bands there were to choose from.
There are the talent is almost limitless here in Utah. We couldn't have put on the Olympic opening and closing ceremonies without having such amazing talent here in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
But talent only takes you so far as a professional musician.
Yeah.
I just took a course at Salt Lake Community College called The Business of Today's Music. And the music, performing, creating music is about 10% of what a musician needs to do. 90% is running your business of your career.
Makes sense.
And you need help. You need a manager. You need a booking agent. You need licensing, like sync licenses and other things. I don't think very many musicians understand how to run the business part of their career.
Mm-hmm. The musician I followed and promoted and always talk about is Tom Bennett. He's a friend of mine. He lives in St. George now. And he just decided after he was done with the punk rock music scene, he wanted to go back to his roots. He's from, I believe he grew up in Alabama, and go back to country western folk music, and just started playing on the side of on Main Street, and just jamming out both covers and original music. And I was like, way to go, man. That's how you do it. You think you can still do that these days, though?
Well, you can, but so the problem that I see is it puts you on the road all the time. You're away from home. It's hard to raise a kid when you're constantly touring. And unless you're an A-level musician where you're making really good money from both your tours, merch, your streaming, and all the things that you have to do to create channels of revenue, is the way most musicians make their money is tour and get gigs, and they're constantly on the road. But being on the road's expensive. You've got room and board and travel expenses that you have to cover. You've got to pay your band if you're not a solo musician, so you've got to be able to cover not only getting paid yourself, but paying the musicians who are with you and covering their room and board while you're going. So for those that are good at it and can generate revenue, they become tied to, shackled to the road. If they were to give up the road, they'd give up their revenue stream. They couldn't make money just playing at home. Because one of the downsides of being a musician is you can't draw a crowd to every gig if you're playing the same geographical area all the time. I don't need the money, so I gig because I enjoy gigging. I want to be respected and I want to be treated fairly, and I don't play for free. But if I play more than 3 or 4 times a month, I can tell that I can't draw as big a crowd as if I only play once a month. But once a month doesn't pay anybody's bills. So you have to go on the road. You have to change your geographical location in order to draw a crowd. That's why musicians end up touring.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Um, so when I stopped you when I talked to you in the park, I told you I really want to go to one or two Red Butte Garden concerts. I started checking out the bands. I started listening to their music because I honestly I didn't know any of them, and I don't want to say I was like totally disappointed, but it was like I've heard local musicians and local bands that I think, in my personal opinion, were better than these bands coming touring to the Red Butte Gardens. Is that a matter of perception, my perception, or do you agree that why aren't we putting our very best and local musicians up on that awesome stage? I think that's probably the best venue in Salt Lake.
Well, we do occasionally. Red Butte will invite local musicians to open for a touring group. Unfortunately, the economics become difficult. If I can see a local musician for free at Gracie's, why would I pay $75 to see them at Red Butte?
Yeah.
So that becomes one of the issues about having local musicians headline at the at Red Butte. I mean, as a member of the board of the Utah Blues Society, I've had lots of local blues musicians complain to me that we don't have local musicians headlining at the Utah Blues Festival. Well, if it's going to cost in excess of $100,000 to put on that festival, we got to bring musicians that are not only going to draw, that people are willing to pay good money to see. Mm-hmm. And local musicians, as good as they might be, and there are certainly plenty of really good local musicians and local blues musicians, they're just not going to draw enough people to make it financially feasible to put on this kind of a festival. 15 years ago, it didn't cost so much to put on a festival. You'd just go up to Snowbird and they'd let you play on their stage for free, or they'd pay you a little bit of money, and you can do a cool little blues festival on the patio at Snowbird. Or you can go out to Rockport and have a rendezvous out there and get a bunch of blues musicians and play for free in the park.
Yeah.
But when you're paying to rent a venue, and you're paying for lights and sound and security and all that, and then you're paying the bands and putting them up in the hotel, it's now a lot more expensive to put on a festival. So you got to make sure you're bringing in nationally touring acts that will draw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've noticed that the big draws now seem to be EDM, electronic dance music, and DJs and DJ this, DJ that, and it's kind of a whole new genre that's really taking hold of the young people.
Yes, I would agree. EDM is super popular. You've got sites that specialize in it, and then you've got these pop-up EDMs, and certainly DJs are doing well, and it's not that expensive to put on that kind of a show.
Yeah, and of course, I guess being still a Gen Xer, I prefer the traditional band where I can appreciate the musicianship, and I'm sure there's a lot of musicianship when it comes to EDM, stuff like that I don't understand, but to me it's like, come on guys, there's some really good music out there. So, but I guess that's personal bias. Do your kids prefer that kind of music, or do they?
Well, they grew up in my house where they listen to a lot of music that I like, and I'm really happy to say that my kids like 70s, 60s rock. It's not all they listen to. I mean, they listen to a lot of contemporary music too, but it doesn't surprise me when I hear them listening to Led Zeppelin or cool. Queen or something like that.
That's great.
Yeah.
And have your kids all moved out of your house?
Yeah. I'm an empty nester with my wife and dogs and cat.
Yeah. Yeah, and you just turned over the reins of Feldman to your son, and You're living semi-retired. How's that going?
Yeah, I call them mostly retired.
Yeah.
I go in every morning because I like to get up and out of the house, but I still like to harass my customers. So I go into work in order to say hello to some friends.
Yeah, and I have to plug Feldman's, man. I won't say the name of the other deli that started at the same time as yours, but it was like two delis opened, and yours was so incredible. I'd never had a pastrami sandwich or a Reuben like that before. I've never been to New York, so but you had a vision for what you wanted to create, and you executed. And I'm sure you had a lot of bumps along the road, but Feldman's Deli is incredible. It's
Tradition. You know, that's what we're doing. We're from Jersey, and we grew up with delis. And after I gave up my career in biotech, I turned to my wife and I said, "It's your turn. What do you want to do?" She grew up in a family bakery, but she said, "I don't want to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning anymore." I said, "All right, what else do we know from Jersey that's missing here?" She said, "There's no deli, not like what we know."
mm-hmm.
And so a year later, we were open, and it was a rocket. It was a rough ride, but it was a rocket ride. City Weekly gave us a review a month after we opened, and then it was like, hold on for dear life, because build it and they will come. Well, they came, and we didn't know what we were doing, and we made a lot of mistakes.
You'd never been in the restaurant business.
I worked as a waiter to put myself through college.
Mm-hmm.
My wife grew up in a bakery, but she did cakes and she decorated cakes. That was her specialty. But neither one of us really had a deep dive into restaurants.
Oh.
So we really didn't know what we were doing. But I had a business background, having run a couple of companies, and my wife grew up in a Polish household where she learned how to cook European-style cuisine, which is the foundation for Jewish deli.
Mm-hmm.
So she had the critical. She knew the key critical things that we needed to do in order to make the food authentic, and I knew the key critical things we needed to do in order to have a successful business. And the combination worked out, and within 2 years we turned a profit, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's
Then
great.
we started hiring musicians.
Well, I mean, we've written about probably hundreds of restaurants over the years, and I go in and try as many restaurants as we can. And I got to say, the key component that I notice to every successful restaurant early on is you got to see those owners, those owners' faces inviting you in, asking you how the food is. That seems to be the number one most critical component to success rather than failure. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think that's one of the advantages an owner-operated restaurant has.
Mm-hmm.
Is the general manager of a chain restaurant is not incentivized to develop relationships with customers. They're incentivized to pass health inspections and to send profit. So you don't see the general manager walking the floor. It's not why he's there.
Mm-hmm.
But in an owner-operated restaurant, where either the name of the restaurant, like in the case of Feldman's, our name's on the front door, we have skin in the game. And so we take it personally when we want to make sure that customers are happy not only with the quality of the food, but the experience of being there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you've done a fantastic job of that, and it's cool to see that you built something that your kids wanted to be a part of, because that's not always the case either.
In Yiddish is a word called verklempt. Verklempt means to be so filled with emotion or joy that you don't have words to express it. And that's the way I feel about my son John taking over the business.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's been a theme that we've noticed. We just did a podcast about a farmer who didn't believe his kids wanted to take over his farms because it is so much work to farm. And his kid, who was actually in biotech and successful career, I guess his mom got hurt, and he said, "Dad, I'm ready to be a part. I'm all in. What do I got to do?" He had his kid come and start driving the tractor and hauling water and hauling fertilizer and seed, and now he's a full-time farmer. But I think, I mean, you take these like upper echelon career paths where you could be in corporate America getting this big salary, as opposed to working at a ma and pa sandwich shop. What was it that drew your son in to want to do that? I think he's obviously a really smart kid.
Well, he'd worked in the deli ever since he was 13. So he worked every position there is in the deli. He graduated from the U with a math degree, and we had a really short career discussion. I said, all right, John, so what are you going to do now? You got a degree in math. You could be an actuary for an insurance company. You can work for Goldman Sachs. You can go down to Houston and become a rocket scientist. Or you can take over a successful business. What do you want to do? And he said, Dad, I'm all in.
Nice.
Because he's not the kind of person that wants to sit in front of a computer all day.
Mm-hmm.
Being in a small business, being the CEO means you're the chief everything officer, which means you got to do whatever it takes. Some days you're fixing the dishwasher. Other days you're trying to troubleshoot the POS system, the point of sale system. Other days you're trying to figure out how to make the bookkeeping more consistent. You're trying to figure out how to do inventory. You're developing new recipes in the kitchen. You know, every day brings its own challenge. And he wanted the kind of career that would allow him to use the breadth of all of his skills, not just some of his skills. And that's why he wanted to take over the deli.
Yeah. Yeah, the theme of I kind of getting back to this when this is our 16-year anniversary of Utah Stories. The theme that we began with was living your best life now, not waiting for retirement or this far off day or begrudgingly going through the grind working for the man, but live it right now. And I think you saw that you probably had a path of retirement before you started Feldman's, but you decided to do something extremely challenging and difficult, starting a deli when there's not really a lot of Jews here in Utah.
No.
And we don't even know that if there's a lot of people who are huge fans of delis. But
Well, you had to have faith.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we had this brainchild of an idea of opening a deli, as a seasoned business person, I did market research. I found out that Lou Dornbush had a deli here from 1955 to 1978, so that was 23 years, and he was wildly successful. That was the first authentic Jewish deli for Utah.
What was it called?
The Lou Dornbush Delicatessen.
Oh, I never.
Down
never
on Broadway. What's now Broadway.
Huh.
And, he was a character. He was a supporter of the arts. You'd always see him at plays and whatever. He used to ride shotgun in police cars. But he made his own corned beef and pastrami. He made his own pickles. He made his own cheesecake. There weren't the connections to bring in stuff from New York like they are now. We bring in corned beef pastrami, mustard pickles, cheesecake, babka, black and white cookies from New York. So we have the authentic flavors, and we have a local company making our Jewish rye bread for us. But back in those days, Dornbush had to do it all himself. But I got to give him credit. He did it really well, and he had a great following. And that gave me courage that if we build it right, they will come. And then other restaurateurs like Scott Evans started opening up higher-end restaurants. When I moved here, I thought all there were franchises. I asked my new secretary, I want to take my wife out on a date. Can you recommend a nice little Italian? And she said, well, have you ever heard of Olive Garden? I go, no. You got to understand, I'm from Jersey. We don't know what Olive Garden is, but I'm looking for a small mom and pop shop. And she said, well, what's a mom and pop shop? So I knew I was in trouble. Mm-hmm. But over the years, I saw more and more better restaurants opening up, and that gave us courage. And so after selling the second biotech company and trying to consult, which didn't go particularly well. That's when I turned to my wife, and the rest is history.
Yeah, well, very cool. Well, thanks for coming on. Is there anything else you'd want to promote? Obviously, we didn't mention that it was a sad previous weekend. It was the last weekend of the Garage on Beck.
Sad
They
day.
had I guess you went to a lot of those performances.
I was part of it. I performed there on the last day.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Bob McCarthy, he'd been running it for the last 18 years through 2 fires, and unfortunately, he could no longer fight the oil refinery, which really didn't want them to be there. So the oil refinery actually bought the property with the intention of tearing it down. So
Fun.
that's why the garage is no more.
Well, who owns the oil refinery? Texaco or Chevron or?
Yeah, whatever that oil refinery,
Yeah.
Tesco or
Well, that's too bad.
Tesoro. Might be Tesoro that owns that one. I don't know,
Yeah.
whichever one it is. But things that are going on, things that I'd like to let people know. The Utah Blues Festival is coming up at the end of June, the 27th and 8th at the Gallivan. We've got a great lineup, including both Carolyn Wonderland and Anna Popovich, who are my favorite female blues artists. And we're having our own Talia Keys on the main stage, but we're also having a local stage featuring 5 different local blues artists that'll be in what we call Vendor Village. There'll be a small stage there, and they'll play while we're changing over the main stage. And we have 4 shows every Saturday this month at the Farmers Market from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Local blues musicians that are there to help us promote the Utah Blues Festival. So those are some things to look forward to.
Cool.
Like I said, there's some open mics. If you guys out there want to meet other musicians, hone your skills, play in front of people, go check out those open mics at Tailgate Tavern, Level Crossing, Pat's Barbecue, and High Point Coffee. Those are the ones in Salt Lake City. There's open mics. I think there's still one at Kamikaze's in Ogden, and at the Cabin in Park City.
That's a good broad array of choices.
Yep. And it's a welcoming group of people. You don't have to be nervous about playing in front of those audiences. We're all happy to see new faces and new music show up.
Yeah, that's cool. When I did it, it was the Dead Goat. That was pretty much it.
Goat.
It was great though.
Yeah, well, the Garage on Beck is like the Dead Goat. I mean, and J.P. Brophy, who owned the Dead Goat, just passed away recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we wrote about him.
So the Zephyr, the Dead Goat, the Garage, those are 3 great venues gone.
Man.
They're in the past now.
The Zephyr used to at least be sitting there for like 25 years.
Right.
But now it's gone and leveled. And
we need better venues. We need more venues. We need more family-oriented venues so that young people can get in and listen to live music instead of just hearing music through their earbuds. If we could do more music in family-oriented venues, I think kids would be fascinated to see how music's really made.
what are the family venues right now that you can name?
Pat's Barbecue, Feldman's Deli.
Mm-hmm.
When there's things happening at the Gallivan Center, there are, I think Kilby Court is an all-ages venue. I know the Utah Arts Hub, where we did the local Blues Fest, is an all-ages venue, but they only put on shows infrequently. I'm trying to help change that.
Yeah.
But most of the venues for music in this town are bars, so it's a 21 and up crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good to know. So Pat's Barbecue, because I'd love to take my little girl to go see some, and just a place where she's not going to go crazy and run around and disturb everybody. Because she
Pat,
gets pretty
she
wild.
can run around and nobody's going to care.
Yeah,
But Pat's does music 4 days a week.
Yeah.
So they have an original open mic on Tuesday. Then the Intermountain Acoustic Music Association has somebody play on Thursdays. Then Pat's has somebody play on Fridays and Saturdays.
Mm.
So it's 4 nights, all ages. Feldman's Deli, you know, I'll promote us. We have music on Friday and Saturday nights from 6 to 7:30. Tonight we have Steve Auerbach playing. Tomorrow JT Draper's playing.
Oh, Steve Auerbach. Yeah, he goes way back with me.
Yeah. So there are places, but you got to look for them. You know,
well, we'll put a bunch of links on our show and with your story. And if you got any other website recommendations, send them our way. And
we'll do.
Yeah, because we got to build the community back up, and I just think we still have a bit of a COVID hangover, where people just need to start going back out more, us included. Like we're slowly getting back out again. But
well, I would say it a little differently. I think we've got plenty of talent. We have a music scene, but we have to build out the music scene. We need to create better venues. We need to create better earning opportunities for musicians. We've got to give venues more of a reason to want to hire local talent. And if we can all work together to do that, and if the fan base, the audience can show up and get excited about the music and invite friends and share posts and things like that, it all goes to helping to build a strong music scene.
Yeah. Yep, agree 100%. Well, thanks for coming on, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Richard.
All right. And again, if you want to support our program and support Feldman's Deli, go out, check out Feldman's Deli in Mill Creek. Just like I said, a really awesome, exceptional deli. I recommend it to everybody. This is our current issue, hot off the press of Utah Stories. This is our farmers market issue. Just a lot of great insight into where you can go to support local farmers, co-ops that you can shop at to find farm fresh food. And we got a story about cannabis turning 5 in Utah. I think it's really interesting. We've now experienced what medical cannabis looks like in Utah for 5 years. And yeah, I wanted to make a note. I wanted to talk a little bit about this. So yeah, we used AI. We used AI to generate images, and we got a little bit of flack about this. And I had a few comments that I went back and forth with people. Why are we using AI to produce illustrations? Well, we found out somebody was saying, "Hey, this illustration really looks like AI." It was one of our cover images a while back. And we said, no, this is not AI. This is our illustrator. Then we got it again. We asked our illustrator to use AI, and he's like, yeah, it's a tool. It's a plugin now for Photoshop. I'm using AI to generate images. And I was like, well, isn't that like kind of cheating? And he's like, no, it's a tool. And I was in the camp where you needed to use hand-drawn skills and artistry and your art school background to generate images. I was in that camp until we started playing with AI and realized it's actually very difficult to generate really good AI imagery. It's not very easy. You still have to have a very good eye. And so yes, we're using AI to generate illustrations. We found out like I said, our illustrator was doing it, so we started doing it. And I don't feel guilty about it. I think it's just one of those things where you progress through society and you move from the horse-drawn carriage into the automobile, and you can stick with the horse-drawn carriage, but I think you're better off using an automobile if it's at your disposal. So you can comment on that. I'm happy to take it, but that's what we're doing. So thank you so much for joining me, and please like this video, smash that like button, share it with some friends, comment. We really appreciate your comments. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Yeah, thanks a lot, Mike.
Well, since you brought that up, I want to show you something.